Hey guys, this is Summer Rayne for Homestead Brooklyn, and it's time to plant one on me. We got some good questions today, and this one is from Taju and Red. Some of your hanging plants don't seem to have saucers. How do you deal with drainage when you water? Okay, so I think you probably maybe seen a photo of my place, and maybe it appears that some of the planters don't have saucers. I would say that almost all of my hanging plants have some sort of saucer, whether it's built on the inside or whether it's attached to the pot down below. You just might not have recognized it, except if you saw my vertical swing garden, which is in my kitchen. And so you'll see that there are 9 planters and they're placed right above one another. I'm very careful not to overwater those, and the ones that seem to drip are the ones that are on the first 2 rows, which are then captured by the row below it. And the bottom row then is the one that typically does not drip. So with those, I just keep in mind that I want to make sure that I have the right kind of plants, the right kind of soil for those plants, and sometimes that soil is the one that holds on moisture a little bit more. And also those are the plants that prefer to have a little bit more kind of like moist soils, if you will. But I think for everything else that I have in my home, whether it's the philodendrons that are on top of my sled shelf garden, they have a terracotta saucer underneath. I'm thinking of my lipstick plants. I'm even thinking about the plants like that are above my head. And over there, there's a plastic kind of bag that's in with the wicker basket. And that technically isn't drainage, but I also have stones and a little bit of charcoal, which is like it's not equivalent to having a saucer, but it's like kind of the next best thing if there is no hole within the planter pot. And I highly, highly, highly recommend having planter pots with a hole in it, unless it's like particular plants. Like I have upcycled tea gardens with my succulents in, and they don't have any holes in the bottom. But yeah, I think it's always a good thing because you don't want plant roots to get wet. You will get root rot if it sits in water too long. Even plants that love to be in water can often get root rot. So it's one of those things. So I always try to make sure that I have some sort of drainage for the plants that are hanging up on my ceiling. So again, thank you so much for that question. The next question is from GNEV. How do you dust your plants? Thank you for that question. Sometimes I don't, to be honest with you. I think I have some of my plants that are pretty dusty, and I think the good point within that question itself is that when plants get too much of a layer of dust, it affects their ability to be able to capture sunlight. So it is important to dust your plants. One of the dustier plants that I do often dust off is my Fiddly Fig, and I have a lot of my Fiddly Figs in one particular room. So I'll often just take a wet sponge or a kind of like just a cloth that I could easily wash. I usually have a little white towel that's not so white anymore, but I'll put a little bit of water on it and I'll just take it leaf by leaf. It's a lot of work, and I typically do that on a Sunday. So maybe one Sunday every month, I really put in a lot of effort into my plants. So this is like trimming and pruning and cutting back, maybe repotting, maybe even taking some plants out of the green wall and putting them elsewhere and putting new plants in the green wall. There's all sorts of things, but usually if I put in like a really good 8 to 10 hour day, that's typically when I would be dusting plants. Other plants I do slightly differently depending on the structure of their leaves. So a Zamioculca or a ZZ plant, which is one of the ones that I have back there, you could just take a sponge and go down the leaves, and it's probably the easiest way to actually do it. And occasionally I'll take my hose. This is probably pretty bad practice, but I'll do like a quick spray of my green wall to knock off any any dust, and I'll have towels underneath to kind of capture any of the spray. So hopefully that helps you on how I dust my plants. If you want to ask any questions, feel free to send me a note on Twitter, on Instagram. I'm at Homestead Brooklyn, or you can write them below, and I compile all of your questions in this handy dandy book. And if you don't want to miss any of the answers to the questions, then you could subscribe to the channel at Homestead Brooklyn.